Good to have you along. So there's a column in the Toronto Sun today by Brian Lackey. Real estate market stats are speaking, but who's listening? Joining me to follow up on this, the host of Simply Real Estate, Sundays at noon on News Talk 1010 Toronto, Todd C. Slater. Good morning, Todd.
Good morning, Jerry.
So the stats are speaking. Before we decide if we're listening, what are they saying?
What the stats are saying is that we don't have nearly the same heat in the market, meaning that we're not turning the same number of properties, and we're not seeing the same number of multiple offers. There are still properties selling multiple offers, and yes, they sell over asking, but what we're seeing is kind of the adverse effect of increasing interest rates. Of course, we've got an upcoming election that always has a little bit to do with the market, but more so the interest rate increase that we've seen 0.75 of a point. It started to make people kind of pause for a second. And, when we take a look at the actual numbers themselves, we're not going backwards as far as values. And I don't want everybody to think the sky's falling. But what we are seeing definitely is people are actually hitting the pause button to saying, okay, let's see what happens with interest rates.
Okay, so was that created by a change in interest rates, and was that the intention?
Well, the Bank of Canada had to move the rate. They're trying to control inflation. You and I both know that there's a lot of things that are kind of running amok right now in the economy. So, was it intentional? Yeah, we always knew that interest rates had to go up. I think they're probably going to have to be very careful. They're saying in June they may turn around and go as much as another half point, maybe 0.75 of a point. But if they do that, I think they're going to stall the market. Now, again, I don't want people thinking that all of a sudden we're going to see a big downturn. Like, this is not a bubble bursting. This is just really a pause in a financial situation. We still have a very, very little inventory. In fact, right now, there's not many properties up on the market for sale. But I would caution people that if you need to sell your home, don't think that you need to set it up for multiple offers. I think in a lot of cases, it's going to be the first offer is going to be your best offer.
Okay, but you said a kind of a pause, a slowdown. First of all, prices aren't all of a sudden cheap.
No, not by a long shot. They're not going to be. There's so many people that have been saying, the market's 30-40% overheated. We are not going backwards by that. I mean, you can always see a fluctuation in any marketplace. You can have about a 3-4 month stall, which may affect prices by 1 to 4 to 5%. But in the areas that are popular, the ones that we know where you only see a couple of houses come up in the market a year, we know for a fact that those aren't going anywhere. They still have multiple offers. You can still pick on some areas in Etobicoke, core of Toronto, out in the West End. These neighborhoods aren't going to go backwards whatsoever. What you will find is that you just won't see the same number of offers coming in on properties. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I would caution people that if they go with the attitude, let's go buy first and sell later, you may struggle with that one. We had that market for the last 18 months where, the advice by all professionals was, make sure that you find property before you decide to sell. I think we're going to be a little bit more balanced. I think you're going to have to make sure that your timing is correct.
Yeah, well, that's always a tricky thing. And, there are some people who wonder, well, what's the purpose of a real estate agent? Well, that would be one of the purposes. Like any professional who's in the market day to day and has been for year after year, they can give you the best educated guess that you'll find. That doesn't mean they have a crystal ball. It just means they can say to you, look, here's what we think is happening, and here's probably the best way to go.
What we're seeing in the industry, Jerry, is kind of interesting. The last couple of weeks, we've seen some properties that did not sell in multiples. So what they did was they had the price listed very, very low, and then all of a sudden they didn't get what they wanted. So then they turn around, they then refresh it, put it back on the market at a much higher price. You'll see a price, call it $1 million, doesn't sell. They didn't get the $1.6 million. So what do? They come back on the market at $1.6 million. So we're starting to see a little bit of that, and I think that people have to remember, don't play with the market too much because it can bite you. And what I mean by that is that, you go in really low, you're trying to force a multiple offer, you're scaring away the buyer of your property sometimes. And I just think that people are sick and tired of multiple offers at this point.
Really, that the sellers are sick of multiple offers?
No. Buyers. Here's the thing. The buyers themselves, they're just, they got beat up over the last 18 months. A lot of people, lost.
Yes.
As you and I talked. Yeah, as you and I talked about it. We talk regularly about this, where you get 20 offers. Well, you get 19 losers, one winner. Well, if you're always on the losing end, eventually you're just going to say, look, you know what? If there's going to be multiple offers, I'm not even going to waste my time. And this is where a lot of buyers. It's just buyer fatigue at this point. Look, as a seller, you always want to get the best price. That is your right. So this is what we're looking at.
All right, I'm talking to Todd C. Slater, and we're actually riffing off a column here by Bryn Lackey in the Toronto Sun, and she writes, real estate market stats are speaking, but who's listening? She writes, will this be like so many of the previous downturns that turned out to be relatively short-lived reactions to new policies and government interventions, or should we be looking to the market to crash like it has happened occasionally in the past? What do you think?
No, we're not going to crash. And, I've talked to a lot of economists on my show. We do get the experts, and, they all agree that, if there was any kind of adjustment, like I said, you might get it just because there's a timing of the market. But as far as an absolute adjustment, not going to happen. We're not in 1988. We're not in 2008. And quite frankly, in 2017, 2018, here in Canada, we only had an adjustment of 5%, despite the fact everybody thought the sky was falling.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing, too, and this is what happens when you start getting economists to give you some predictions. I was joking with John Moore, Todd, earlier this morning because he had profiled himself on Twitter with his economics teacher. And I said, what's the purpose of an economic forecast, John? And he said, I don't know. And I said, it's to make astrology look good. Because Bryn writes, even the economists can't find consensus. Some reports are saying we could expect a 24% drop in home prices, while others suggest we'll land somewhere in the area of 5 to 7%, still a ways off from where we were pre-pandemic. The only consistency there is that people seem to be agreeing there might be a bit of a drop.
Yeah, and here's the thing. If you're listening to CMHC, the sky's going to fall. They predicted that even during COVID. That didn't happen. You're going to get some people that are saying about a 5% drop if there is a drop. There's also some of the people that are saying, no, we're probably going to be, 3 to 6% year over year this year as far as an overall year increase. So, it's really, really difficult to nail it down. Not one market is the same anywhere in Canada, nor is the class of market. So you can look at condominiums, townhomes, detached. These are all going to have different effects in the market.
All right. What's getting hit the hardest right now in terms of price stalling or going down?
Well, there is no price going backwards right now. I've got to be clear about that. We are not going backwards as far as price. What we're seeing is the detached market. We're finding that we're getting just a few less multiple offers. Some are selling in around asking if they've asked the right price. They weren't setting up for multiples. And quite frankly, condos just seem to keep going. I mean, this is the thing. This is where the first-time home buyers are, trying to get in at the very end of the market, and they'll keep buying.
Well, it's, if nothing else, whether it makes people angry, it makes people happy because they just sold for an incredible price, it's always fascinating in the GTA.
It's always moving. It's a moving target, Jerry.
The only place that's more expensive is Vancouver. Is that true?
Yeah, Vancouver will always be that. They have a lot of limitations from the way they're in the mountains and some of the geography there. So right now, if Vancouver could add a couple million acres to Vancouver, they would be very well off. But they can't. So it's going to stay high there.
Yeah, well, they're going to have to pave over the ocean, I guess. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jerry.